The views expressed on this broadcast of Step by Step Towards Emotional Sobriety with Dr. Alan Berger do not necessarily reflect those of Take 12 Radio, KHLT Recovery Broadcasting, or our affiliates. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. And now, here's your host, Dr. Alan Berger, and the Monty'man.
Well, welcome aboard the Good Ship Recovery once again, ladies and gentlemen, and all you scallywags and scallywaggles out there. It's good to have you with us here at Step by Step Towards Emotional Sobriety with myself and, of course, Hazelden's liaison to the world, the Betty Ford's connection to emotional sobriety, the hotel and travel industry's #1 investor, the elusive Dr. Alan Berger.
Evening, buddy.
My goodness, you are a busy man.
Yes, I am a busy.
You really are.
So every show you have a different intro for me.
Well, yeah, we're going to do
Show us what you're going to say tonight.
Yes, it's always a surprise. But what's really cool is you're not so elusive that we can't have you on this show, and it's always a great honor to have you here. And you are on the road again, true?
Yes, I am on the road. I'm out at the Betty Ford Center, out of Hazelton's Betty Ford Center, and working with the staff out here and helping them sharpen their clinical skills. And I got to say, Monty, we had a great day of training today, and I was very, very touched by what I saw. The staff is really taking to the things I've been teaching them, and it's showing up in their clinical work and the discussions that are taking place. So I'm very, very pleased, and my heart is filled because it means that the people coming into treatment are even going to get better help than they've been getting. And not that they haven't been getting great help, but
sure.
But what I say to people all the time is you don't have to be sick to get better.
Yeah, that's really good. Isn't that the truth? Well, that's a really good deal, really good stuff, and we just congratulate you on and thank you for all the work that you do. Now, on this show, you have a guest with you, true?
Well, I have a dear friend of mine and a fellow journeyman through the recovery process. Damian and I know each other now for, it's probably going on 20 years.
Wow.
A couple decades, and we're good friends, and he's really taking to his work in the field. He does interventions. He does some sober companion work for me at times, and he's just an all-around great guy with a fantastic tennis game. So, Damian, welcome to the show tonight.
Well, thank you very much. I'm still kind of pondering Monty's intro. I've known you for 20 years. I didn't know that you were that accomplished in all those areas.
Yeah, I didn't know it either. I find out something new about myself every time I do this show.
Well, one of my character defects is I stretch the truth.
I do have to say it at some point.
I grew up in a house where my father said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Did he like to fish?
And I'll tell you, his dad could tell a great story. I got to spend some time with his dad, and a great man. Well,
Damian Schiller is our guest during this show, Step by Step, and thank you for joining us, Damian. You do intervention work, you do sober companion work. Is another term for sober companion sober coach?
Yes.
Yeah. And you guys have known each other for a very long time, so it's great. It's great to have you on. So we're looking at on this show developing a healthy perspective towards yourself, your feelings, and your emotional patterns. So launch us forth, Dr. Berger.
Well, as our listeners have been aware of, is we're kind of going through 12 smart things to do when the booze and drugs are gone. And I've been taking each of the smart things respectively, and we've been talking about them in our shows in the last about 7 or 8 shows. In fact, today is Smart Thing number 7 from the book, and it's about developing that healthy perspective towards yourself, your feelings, and your emotional patterns. And why don't we start by breaking that down a little bit? Let's talk about what does a healthy perspective towards yourself mean? And I think a way to start to discuss that, Monty, is to talk about what has happened in our development, or what happened in our development early on, when instead of actualizing who we are, our true self, we made a decision to try to actualize a concept. And this concept was based on this idealized image of who we thought we should be.
Mm-hmm.
So when we abandon ourselves, and that's really what we did, we abandoned ourselves for this concept. Now all of our energies, right, went into realizing this concept, this false self. And we can never have a healthy perspective towards ourselves if what we're trying to do is to actualize a concept. Because what that does is it creates a very black and white world, Monty, a very absolute world. We're either okay or we're not okay. We're either perfect or we're not perfect. We're either, on the right path or we're off the path. And there's no gray in that world. And that's what that does to us. It's so hard to force ourselves into that mold because human beings are messy. We don't fit that.
Right.
We're not going to be perfect. In fact, I love what, Ernest Kurtz says. He says that we are perfectly imperfect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing. So in terms of developing a healthier perspective towards ourselves, we have to challenge who we're trying to be, what we're trying to become. And if we're not committed to becoming our true self, and if we're not committed to authenticity and becoming real, then we're in big trouble, and we're never going to develop a healthy perspective towards ourselves.
Is this the perfectionist big dilemma?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's the curse of perfectionism.
Yeah.
It really is a curse. In our society, we talk about it as an ideal. That if you're perfect, right, you got to throw the perfect game if you're a pitcher, right?
Right.
You want to somehow achieve perfection. But it's really a curse. It's not an ideal in any way in terms of human development because we're just never going to achieve it. And a lot of people, myself included, have really put myself through hell on trying to live up to those unrealistic and unreasonable expectations.
Yeah, and we're taught not to have unreasonable expectations, but then we turn around and it's the very thing we do to ourselves all the time. Let me ask you something. It doesn't help either when you start to, and I'm saying this out of my own experience, when you start to let go of the worry and the unnecessary concern over things you can't change, you start to release some of that perfection attitude, and you start to relax and start enjoying life. And then somebody comes and says to you, somebody close to you, many times, they are getting the impression that you just don't care. And it's not that you don't care, you're actually beginning to get it.
Well, that's very interesting, see, because if other people haven't learned how to do this to themselves, right, for themselves, if they haven't learned to enjoy themselves as they are instead of trying to live up to being perfect, then they're going to, of course, put that expectation back on us.
Yeah, you bet.
That's the thing that happens a lot, right, is that, we treat other people like we treat ourselves. So if I'm putting all that pressure on myself, I'm going to put it on you. And you're right. What happens when you're in a relationship and you start to change some of this stuff? And all of a sudden you're not doing that. Well, your partner or your friends are going to expect you to be the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they're going to look at you like something's wrong with you. And see, that's the whole weird thing about this is that we are all doing this. So this is it's almost like there's this conspiracy, right, amongst us all, that we've totally colluded, and we're all saying that, hey, don't be your true self, be your false self, because that's what you're supposed to do. And wow, what a problem that becomes for those of us that are trying to stay clean and sober and trying to find some freedom from all of the insanity that goes on inside our heads.
Yeah.
Like I said, my friend Damian's been on this journey for a while, and he might even be able to share a little bit about his experience. What has that been like for you, Damian?
It's been a long road. I liked how Monty picked up on the perfectionism, and I think it goes one of two ways, or it has for me. I'm so attached to the outcome that I'm going to trample over people, places, and things to achieve that outcome, or I will stall out and not do anything. And those are my two options. There is no gray in it. I'm either going to, just blow the door off, or I'm not going to try it at all. And I think that then puts me in kind of a place where I'm not willing to just flow with what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very well said. And, one of the things I'm talking about to the counselors out here at the Betty Ford Center has been that mental health is a result of a coordination of all that you are, right? That you have to take all the different parts of yourself, Monty, and somehow getting them work together. Well, when you got such a circus inside you like I do, it's hard to get all the clowns going in the same direction. It starts to be like herding cats or something, right? It's be so crazy. But that's what we're striving for, is to find some way of embracing ourselves as we are. But you see, if I've got a set of rules about how I'm supposed to be, then when a part shows up that doesn't fit with that concept, I got to throw it away. And then how can I coordinate myself if I'm disowning this part of myself? Let's say I've got this idea that I've just got to be a nice guy all the time. Well, what if I need to be firm? What if I need to stand in a pretty tough way in a situation to take better care of myself? Well, that's not going to happen if that concept I have of myself says you just have to be a nice guy to be okay.
Wow. Because you know what I've found is that in attempting to fulfill those unreasonable expectations of myself, and then I don't do it, I start practicing the guilt thing, and I'm learning that this whole guilt thing is really a very selfish emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very much so.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you bet.
It is, that's right. And there's a certain pain in it, right?
Yeah.
And there's a certain way of beating yourself up because you're not being who you think you should be.
Right. And how liberating it is to find out that you don't have to be.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Let me just share. I want to just read a part out of the 12 Smart Things so people kind of get a sense of what is the difference between this false self and our true self, or the difference between the false self and being in recovery. Because I am convinced that if you are still honoring your false self, that you cannot be fully in recovery. So here it is. Let me give you a list. So the false self is focused on having, right? We think that I am more the more I have, while recovery is concerned with being. The false self wants to control everything. Like Damian says, I want to control everything to make sure the outcome is what I want it to be. Where recovery is about letting go of control and just trusting the process and learning to deal with whatever is going to happen, as Damian said, to be able to flow with our experience. The false self wants perfection. Recovery is about progress. The false self rejects our true self and alienates us from it. Recovery is focused on renewing our relationship with our lost true self. So what a shift, huh?
Yeah.
In terms of what's happening in our recovery and in terms of what we're doing. And we can all feel it, when you and I have had this discussion before. You've put it in this context. How do you know when you're doing God's will? And the way I would say this one, well, how do you know when you're, honoring your true self? How do you know when you're being the self that you truly are?
Mm-hmm.
Well, just look at your life. If you're flowing, if you're, just seem to be in sync with what's going on, then you're flowing with then your true self. You're being the self that you truly are. When you're having conflict and your desires are conflicting and colliding with other people, then the other self, the other part of yourself, that false self, is in charge.
Now, you're not suggesting, though, and I want to make sure that the listeners understand this. I don't blame. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you're suggesting that this necessarily means that everything is comfortable around you. It's how you respond to that, right? I mean, it's
exactly.
Can you have serenity?
We're talking about right on. See, so that's what we're talking about in terms of emotional sobriety. Is that regardless of what's happening, that you're keeping your center of emotional
right.
That you're able to. You may get knocked off balance temporarily. We all do.
Mm-hmm.
Cover your balance pretty quick. You've got that resilience.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick up a drink, or you don't have to use to feel good. You're able to find a way to use your program, to use some of these ideas, to even relate to yourself differently. So if you make a mistake, you don't sit there beating yourself up forever about it. You say, hey, I made a mistake, but I'm not a mistake.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
The false self says you're a mistake. You didn't just make a mistake, you're a mistake.
And your true self says that you're not, but your false self rejects your true self.
Well, and I think also my false self tells me that I need to be more than what the situation is asking for. I either need to come in over the top because I'm feeling insecure and everyone or everything seems to have it figured out, or I'm more than what the situation is asking for. The line that Dr. Berger mentioned about being, that's the road that I think I start to realize my true self, that being is more important than just doing.
Yeah, because we do a lot. We do all day long and just spin our wheels. I can be about the business of doing all sorts of wonderful things and be an absolute wreck at the end of the day because I'm never measuring up. It's never quite good enough. Or if it is, it has to be better than that. And that's, we got that phrase in recovery circle, easy does it, right? How many people really believe that, though?
Yeah, that's right. That's right, because easy does it is really a way of trying to say to the false self, get off my back.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone for a while and give me a chance here to grow.
Right.
See, that's what we're trying to do, is the easy does it is to that part of ourselves that's relentless, that's a taskmaster, that's the top dog, and that part is directly related to the false self, that tries to help us be the self that we think we need to be okay. And it is relentless.
Yeah.
And it's brutal at times.
Yeah.
Another saying that I really like is, I need to wear life like a loose garment. And I can really get a nice visual on that because I used the word flowing earlier, and I think that that's very representative of me being mindful of the good things in my life and the blessings and just being a part of a bigger thing versus to be very small-minded and where's mine and who's trying to get it, and that seems very kind of tight and constricting.
Yeah, I like that. I'm imagining. I remember when I was in high school, I loved wearing my dad's old baggy army jacket. Drove my parents crazy, but it was so comfortable. It was so big, so I kind of that's kind of the picture I have in my mind, and it was a lot of fun.
So now let's shift this if you want, or do you want to take a little break here? Because I want to talk about how do we develop a healthier perspective towards our feelings.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take our break. And when we come back, we will tackle that. So, folks, don't go away. More with Dr. Alan Berger and Damian Schiller when we return.
I had this illness that really made me powerless over alcohol and that insisted that I got drunk. And so I got drunk. It doesn't have anything to do with trying to control it. An alcoholic who picks up the first drink will pick up the second drink. I can't say to anyone, no, don't drink. But I can say that when you decide you don't want to drink, come to AA. The door to AA is always open. Alcoholics Anonymous. It works. Look us up. Check your phone book, newspaper, or AA.org.
Hey, check it out. You can now access all of our shows from a variety of podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, YouTube, Podomatic, and Player FM. Simply search for Take 12 Recovery Radio, and you'll be tuned into the best in recovery broadcast journalism. Also available at take12radio.com.
All right, and welcome back. And on the phone with me, of course, is Dr. Alan Berger, and our special guest for this show, Damian Schiller, is with us, an interventionist, sober companion, 27 years of sobriety, and I hope 27 years of sanity, right, Damian?
I would like to tell you that that's a given, but it's... I guess the sanity is to be able to recognize the behavior.
There you go. There you go.
And on the court, sometimes he's a bit insane. I can tell you that. Full of a tennis player, but he gets a little crazy out there sometimes.
All right. Well, folks, our email address here is take12radio@comcast.net. And if you'd like to email Dr. Berger, his email address is abphd@msn.com, and his website is abphd.com. You can follow the links right here at take12radio.com. All right. So we are moving into another part of this, and what did you call it, Dr. Berger, before the break?
Well, in terms of developing this healthier perspective towards ourselves, I mean, it's part and parcel about having a healthier perspective towards our emotions and how do we deal with our feelings. And the big mistake that a lot of us make is that we give our feelings too much privilege in our lives. Now, what do I mean by saying that we give it too much privilege? Or another way to say it is we give them too much authority. Well, let's say I'm afraid of something. I'm afraid of doing something. Let's say there was this cute girl, and I would like to ask her out. And my fear says to me, you know how much risk you're taking if you ask her out? She could say, you got to be kidding me. I would never go out with you, you shiny-headed, bald fat boy, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to sit back and honor that fear and just fantasize how great it would have been to ask her out and to go out with her, but not dare take the risk because I'm afraid she's going to reject me, and then I'm not going to be able to support myself. So when I give my fear that much power, when I give it that much authority, when I give it that much privilege, it just starts to grow, Monty.
Mm-hmm.
So now, before you know it, fear is running my life completely. And how many of us that take a rigorous fourth step realize how much we've let fear run our lives and influence our decision and influence our behavior? I mean, it's quite an awakening to realize how you haven't been in charge of your life. Your fear has been running it.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible wake-up call, man. I got to tell you, I saw that when I did my fourth step, and I started to see that my life was being lived by these forces that I wasn't even conscious of because I didn't want to see what a scaredy cat I was. I didn't want to see how frightful or how fearful I was in my behavior, and also how frightful I could be. I guess that's the other side of it, too. So what has to happen in recovery is we need to take another look in terms of the kind of relationship we have to our feelings. So this is a big shift in the way that we think about it. Now, the healthy perspective is to respect your feelings, but don't give them privilege. I'm afraid. Okay, what am I afraid of? Okay, so what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, can I live with the worst thing? Let's say she says no, and then I'm going to be upset with myself for a while. Can I deal with being upset with myself? Well, of course I could.
Yeah.
So I've got to find a way to start supporting myself better, and that is not to give feelings that kind of power.
Do you think, Dr. Berger, do you think that people sometimes go really far the other way and don't respect them and disrespect their feelings by not even acknowledging them?
Well, that's the same problem, though, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Oh, and the other way. See, you can fall out of one side of the bed and say, I'm going to give all these feelings so much power, but another response to them, and it's the same thing, it's just the other side of the coin. I'm not even going to respect any of the feelings I have, and I'm going to be just, fearless, and I'm going to be impulsive, and I'm going to ignore any kind of feeling.
One of the things I got to say this. One of the things, and if I'm off base here, tell me, because I certainly am learning all the time. But one of the things that is always just like nails on a chalkboard is when I hear well-meaning people tell a newcomer in recovery, "Well, your feelings aren't right or wrong; they're just your feelings. Just ignore it." And I'm like, wait a minute. We have feelings for a reason. You know, our Creator endowed us with this. It's just that we've thwarted the way we look at them, the way we respect or disrespect them. But they're very real, and they're not meant to be just ignored. True?
That's right on. So I'm not saying discount them.
Right.
Respect is not discounting or dismissing our feelings. It's respecting them. It's acknowledging that they're there and dealing with them instead of giving them the power.
Yeah.
See, that's the shift that we're talking about.
Yeah, see, so people...
How have you seen that in recovery, Damian? What are some of your thoughts about that?
You know, I think the fear that I'm concerned about, or I guess the feelings, is in wallowing in them. Because then, consciously or unconsciously, I give myself almost an out not to work through whatever the next indicated step is to be. If I can just hang with I feel bad or lonely or I'm angry or resentful, then I don't think I start to really work through what is going on with me. My fear always is not in the moment, but what's going to happen 5 minutes from now or a day. So it's all kind of future tripping or projecting that somehow this situation or event is not going to go my way. And so what I'm trying to learn to do is be more mindful in the moment, because when I'm always in the moment, things are okay.
So let me ask you, Damian, let me ask you this question. Do you find it, or have you in the past found it difficult to differentiate between being concerned, being cautious, or being worried?
The distinction for me is being concerned. I'm still taking action. I'm either reaching out and sharing with somebody, hey, this is what's going on, or I'm trying to better understand what I'm dealing with. The other part is, I think, almost immobilizing, where I just stay with the feeling that's kind of holding me back, the worry part of it. There's nothing, in my experience, nothing positive has ever come out of worrying about something.
Right. Right. So it depends on where, are your feet moving? If they're not moving and you're just wallowing in it, what good is that?
Right.
Yeah.
And I can absolutely make the distinction between the two, because I think in the wallowing, I'm very energy less, and in the, trying to move through it, I feel that I have some energy and some hope and some faith. I think in the wallowing, I get very kind of, oh my goodness, there's, which way do I go? There's nowhere to go.
Dr. Berger, what are emotional patterns?
Well, so emotional patterns show up in terms of each of us, if we stop and look at it, tend to deal with things in a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
We take one of three paths, and it's not that we can't do all three of these things, but typically we're going to take one path or the other. We either, in a situation when we are feeling stressed or when we're challenged in some way, we're feeling tension, we're going to try to take control of the situation. We're going to maybe scapegoat somebody, blame somebody else, but we're going to move against people, right, as a way of handling what's going on.
Right.
So that's one pattern. The other pattern, which is just as prevalent, is to move towards people. We now want to people please. We want to make everything okay. So instead of, adding to the tension, now we want to take the tension away. We want to be the peacekeeper, the peacemaker, those kinds of things. Or we tend to run. And that's the third pattern, is that we distance ourselves. We stonewall a person, we emotionally withdraw, we actually leave the relationship and cut it off. So we can deal with things in one of these three ways, and typically your emotional pattern is going to follow one of these three paths. I usually take the first path. If there's a problem, I'm going to take control. I'll blame you for it. I will do things like that. I've learned how to move against people, right? That's the way that I deal with it. I call it the New York attitude. New York, that's how she dealt with her feelings, and I picked up that same kind of an attitude at home.
Dr. Berger, I think I'm neurotic, because I'll tell you what, I think I go through all three of these really quickly. I try to control you. If you don't do it the way I think you should, I will blame you for that. I will move against you, and then I'll apologize. I'll people please. Oh, I probably shouldn't have been so tough. What do you mean you don't accept my apology? Well, I'm out of here.
I thought I was the only one that did that.
Yeah, so that's right. See, because all three of those things are something we all do. I can do the people-pleasing, too.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. When you do number one, you move against people and you become a people-pleaser, you hate yourself for being a people-pleaser.
Yeah.
See, when you're a people-pleaser and you move against people, you hate yourself for moving against them.
Yep. This is a really...
You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's that kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. Dr. Berger and Damian, let me ask both of you guys. This can be a real challenge for people who are in the business of being treatment providers, counselors, sponsors.
You got it.
My gosh.
That's right, Monty. We all do it, and if we don't become aware of what we're doing, then we're never going to be able to change it. We're never going to be able to develop some other options. So, everybody asks me, well, what's healthy, right? If those are three things are not a healthy adaptation, then what would a healthy adaptation look like? And what it looks like is just staying connected, not polarizing with somebody, not pleasing them, not going against them, not running away from them, but just adding more of yourself to the situation and encouraging the other person to do the same thing.
Your true self.
When you do that, especially when there's tension, you grow. That's when growth takes place inside of you. That's when you start to differentiate yourself. That's when you develop even more and more of this ability to maintain your emotional sobriety.
Very good, very good. And folks, I want to tell the listeners, you just said a word there that some people are going, what? Differentiate. I can never say that right. But we did a show specifically on that. If you go back to the archives, it's a real important term to understand. Can you give us a real brief summary of what that means?
That differentiation, the more differentiated I am, the more I keep my autonomy in relationships, Monty. See, that's the key here. The less differentiated I am, the more I'm going to feel fused with you, the more I'm going to lose myself in the relationship, the more I'm going to take what you do personally.
Yeah.
The more differentiated I am, the more I just see you as who you are, and I'm who I am, and that I'm able to appreciate you as different than who I am, and I'm able to appreciate myself. So it's kind of that, I'm okay, you're okay position more. But when we're undifferentiated, it's very hard to achieve that.
Yeah, wow.
And listen, all of us are struggling with that in recovery.
Yeah, you bet.
Like I've mentioned before in the show, a great way of looking at the steps, and Bill really got this. I mean, because the 12 and 12 was written 17 years after the Big Book. So there was 17 years of Bill trying to learn on how do these steps help me keep my emotional sobriety. That's one way of reading the 12 and 12, is to go back in there and say, what is the 12 and 12 teaching us about what is a healthy relationship to ourselves, what's a healthy relationship to our emotions, and what's a healthy relationship to others? And I believe that that the steps are giving us guidance in all three of those areas and helping us develop a healthier relationship with ourselves, with others, and with our emotions.
Yeah, you bet they are. And what's sad is to watch people go through the step process the first time, the first formal working, if you will, and then just repeat the same pattern of doing them over and over and over and over again, never growing, because step 10, 11, 12 talks about growing, not maintenance. It talks about continuing to grow. And the things that you talk about on this show are prime examples of continuing on in our growth process and just not repeating the same good stuff over and over again and not getting any not improving on what's already good.
Well, not to put you on the spot, but, one of the things I was telling Damian when we had a little break is to say, you have taken so many of these ideas to heart.
Yeah.
And applied them in your life. And, you shared with me how it's helped you deal with situations in a much better way. And you feel so much better about yourself.
Absolutely. Like night and day.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I don't think it's coincidental, Monty, that you're also now, I don't know how many of your listeners know this, but you're taking better care of yourself.
Yeah.
You're losing weight.
Right.
Being fantastic, man. And it's all showing that in that shift in terms of how you're dealing with things, you're experiencing some of the rewards.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. And some of this stuff, I look at this and I think, when did I start doing that differently and doing this differently? And some of this stuff just kind of falls into place once you recognize who your false self is and who your true self is and how the Creator wanted you to enjoy life. Once you get that...
Well, I've seen that in you. My dear friend Damian, I've seen it in him in terms of your growth.
Wow.
The subtle shift is, that you mentioned, Monty, is and I've realized it as well, is when I come up to that place where I realize this isn't working for me anymore. And I might not consciously say that, but I just feel that better to go this path than that path.
All right.
So Dr. Berger always reminds me, when in doubt, be honest. And that was a very foreign term before I wrapped my mind around it, because, at the base of my issues, I think lack of power and control is always at the forefront. And the more that I try to assert myself into having it go my way, I end up embellishing and becoming dishonest, not so much cash register dishonest, but, I'm going to try to manipulate the situation to derive the outcome that I want. And I just don't want to be that guy anymore, partly because as I change, I don't really know what the outcome should be, and so why am I going to push so hard for this outcome?
Yeah. Yeah. And, our my wife and I, our family's pastor said something the other day that just made I love it when things come together, the recovery thing, the 12-step thing, the spiritual thing, and you're listening to all of it. He said something, I've known this for years, but sometimes the light goes on, right? He says, if you've truly turned your will and your life over to the care of a power greater than yourself, at that point, the outcome is his responsibility, not yours. And I thought, wow.
What a relief that I'm not truly responsible for that outcome.
I know.
Responsible for the footwork and
right.
Turn the results over.
Yep. And the only reason I go sideways is because I either take it back or I have a thwarted idea of what's good and what's bad.
Yeah, God forbid I put something into work and it's really happening. I now seem to think I'm going to take all the credit for it, and I'm going to be able to derive this outcome every time I put.
Yeah. Wasn't I such a good boy? Oh boy, this is a good show, Dr. Berger. I'm so glad, Damian, that you're with us for this. What's some tremendous insight? Good stuff.
Yeah, great stuff. And if you ever get a chance to see him on the court, you'll even see how well he can rip that two-hander backhand he's got.
Well, you never know. After 2 hip surgeries and knee problems and all that, even though that's happened, it's been an amazing thing. And I don't know if Damian, well, yeah, you knew I had a wheelchair when I was at the Weston, and I was either in the wheelchair or I was walking with a cane. I'm looking forward to the day when I'm out there on the tennis court too.
Well,
So
you're out of the wheelchair now, aren't you?
yep, I'm out of the wheelchair. You bet.
And are you still using the cane, or is that stopped?
I haven't used it at all. I still can't walk long distances, and long for me is from one end of the store to the other. But the distances that I can walk, even though they may hurt, I'm able to press through that now, where I couldn't before.
But look at that. I mean,
That's awesome.
how fantastic is that?
Oh, I know. It's like, wow. It blows my mind. You know, we take so many things for granted, don't we? I'm like, the ability to get in and out of your car without using a cane or some sort of assisted device. And bless the heart of folks who need to do that. But, you know, I was coming very close to settling. I don't have to settle. I'm not at that place yet.
Yeah, right on that. Right on.
Yeah.
God, that touches me, man. I'm so happy for you.
Well, thank you, brother. Well, you've been a big part of that. You've really helped quite a bit.
If you want to learn more about this, then please get a hold of my book, 12 Smart Things to Do When the Booze and Drugs Are Gone, and my follow-up book, The 12 Hidden Rewards of Making Amends. That'll go a lot more into this false self, true self issue, and to help you see how the steps are helping us really recover our lost true self. So please do that. And, you know, I've got to say, and I think it's partly because of this show, Monty, my book, 12 Smart Things, is now starting to, you know, be higher on the Amazon bestseller list than even 12 Stupid Things. 12 Stupid Things had this incredible run. It's been in the top, you know, 20 since it's been out. Gets as high as 2 or 3 on several of the bestseller lists. Well, guess what? I looked on the Amazon bestseller list the other day, and 12 Smart Things was like 8 or so on the list, and 12 Stupid Things was like 13 or so. So
imagine that.
I'm really reading it, and I'm very excited about it. You know, I'm really glad that I've been able to bring something, you know, to the recovery community that can help them on their journey.
You bet. Well, that's wonderful. That's absolutely marvelous. Congratulations for that. And folks, you can order those books on Amazon. You can go to Alan Berger's website. If you get confused, you can call me. You can email me. We'll make sure we get that in your hand. And don't be afraid of it. These aren't huge books big enough to choke a mule. These are easy reads, and they're fun too. They really are. All right, Damian Schiller, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Monty. I appreciate the opportunity to come on. I hope to do it again with you guys sometime.
All right. So, folks, once again, Dr. Berger's website is abphd. Just think of Alan Berger, PhD, .com. His email is abphd@msn.com. You can reach him through our website as well. Remember, on your smartphone, we've designed the website to fit nicely on most smart devices, whether it's an Android or whether it's an iPhone or a pad. You really, there's really no problem with that at all. And if you ever have a problem getting a show or listening and you want some coaching with that, feel free to call me. Feel free to email me. I'll talk to you and we'll walk you through it, because we don't want you to miss a minute of this great, healthy stuff that really, our Creator has put there for us so we can enjoy and experience the life He created you and I to experience. So until our next broadcast, special thanks to Damian Schiller and, of course, Dr. Alan Berger. This is the Monty'man, along with the guys from Southern California, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.